which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
We're working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus, and joining me today is from our EBC Thailand Bureau. Hello, Esther.
Hi, I'm Esther Adanga from EBC Thailand Bureau, giving you the latest news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the Philippines will be getting its supply of the COVID-19 vaccine starting next year from 3 manufacturers: Sinovac, Biotech, Oxford, AstraZeneca, and Pfizer-BioNTech.
In Malaysia, the Health Ministry recorded 2,234 new COVID-19 infections in the last 24 hours, breaking its November 24 record.
And a coronavirus scare that cut short a cruise to nowhere off Singapore was a false alarm, according to officials, after fresh tests on a passenger came back negative.
Britain on Thursday signed a free trade deal with Singapore, giving it a key foothold in Asia as it seeks to forge its own path after leaving the European Union, while talks on the post-Brexit deal stumble.
First, in the Philippines, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the Philippines will be getting its supply of COVID-19 vaccines starting next year from 3 manufacturers, namely Sinovac, Biotech, Oxford, AstraZeneca, and Pfizer-BioNTech. And the secretary said the earliest possible inoculation program in the country is expected to use China's Sinovac vaccine, while Pfizer-BioNTech shots will come in the second or third quarter of 2021. Let's listen in.
Po is Sinovac. Di ko po dala yung ating timeline, pero sa susunod dadaling ko po. Pero ang punto lang is pagdating po ng first quarter, magsisimula na rin po tayo ng pagbabakuna. I think we are also sure, because the agreement with Pfizer was brokered by the DFA, no less than Secretary Locsin and Secretary Pompeo. But Pfizer will come in the second and the third quarter.
The government is aiming to inoculate 60 to 70 million Filipinos within 3 to 5 years. Secretary Roque added that Manila could easily tap both the Asian Development Bank, or ADB, and the World Bank's loan facilities for vaccines.
In Maldives, dozens of foreigners to be deported versus drug charges. To tell us more about it, we have Steffi De Juan from our EBC Maldives Bureau. Hi, Steffi.
Hi, Esther. Good afternoon to you and to all the televiewers around the world. So here's the latest updates from Maldives. Police have arrested 60 foreign nationals hailing from Sri Lanka, India, and Bangladesh in an ongoing large-scale operation to catch suspected drug users and distributors. Maldives police has reported an increase in the number of foreign nationals involved in the consumption and trade of illegal narcotics and alcohol. Maldives immigration authorities have confirmed that work to deport those arrested is presently underway. According to an immigration spokesperson, the expatriates arrested, only 3 were possession of their passports. Hence, authorities are said to be procuring the necessary travel documentation for those remaining. However, the media official did not reveal information on the present location or status of the detainees. In an interview given last Thursday to local media outlet Miharu by Police Superintendent Ahumad Shikar, head of the Drug Enforcement Department, DED, he noted that the amount of foreigners being recruited by gangs and drug networks to partake in their illicit trade, particularly on the front lines, is presently on the rise. Superintendent Shikar further projected that the trend would also see more foreign workers being inducted into the market and or introduced to drug abuse for the first time, noting that having foreigners working on the front line offers added protection to the kingpins in charge of operation. The superintendent called the employing of expatriates to work in illegal activities a type of distractions. However, DED head Shakir has made these assertions. It is also widely known that foreign nationals, especially expatriate labor workers, are often mistreated by their employees in Maldives and may be under duress or facing impossible situations prior to their involvement in any criminal activity. A 30-year-old foreign national who has been residing in the country for 7 years was arrested during one of DED's recent sting operations. According to Miharu, the person claimed that their drug use was a recent development and that narcotics were first offered by a friend approximately 7 months earlier. The year 2020 saw various protests led by expatriate workers in various islands, including the capital city, amid renewed concerns from the rights group as well as the general public over the continued exploitation of expatriate workers in Maldives. Violations reported including human trafficking, withholding of wages, poor living conditions, and other human rights violations. And that's the quick update from Maldives. Back to you, Esther.
Thank you, Steffi, for all your updates. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you so much, Esther. Reporting live from Maldives, this is Steffi Juan, and we live in interesting times.
Going back to the Philippines, DILG Philippines has urged local government units to pass an ordinance banning karaoke this holiday season because according to research, the risk of COVID-19 spread in karaoke or videoke increases.
Alinsunod din po ito doon sa naging panawagan ng Department of Health. And according to the DOH, based on recent studies, in particular the Aerosol Science and Technology Journal studies, wherein sinasabi doon na loud singing increases viral particle spread by 449%. Ganun po ang kataas ang viral spread kung ang isang tao ay kumakanta kumpara sa normal na pagsasalita. So given this finding by the scientists, by our health professionals, sinusuportahan po ng DILG ang panawagan ng DOH na ipagbawal muna ang mga karaoke. Ang atin kung gusto sana mangyari ay maging solemn ang ating selebrasyon. Tayo na munang mga magkakapamilya ang magsama-sama at wala munang pupunta sa kapitbahay or pupunta sa barangay hall na para mag-karaoke namang doon. So, we are encouraging all local government units sa panahon ngayon ng pandemya na magpasa ng mga ordinansa para ipagbawal ang paggamit ng karaoke.
President Duterte said he's considering banning the use of any fireworks nationwide next year to prevent injuries and deaths from it. Prohibition of the use of fireworks, he said, is an issue of public interest, health, and safety. Let's listen in.
Kaibigan, the problem is the COVID. It has dampened, medyo humina ang ano natin, ang celebration natin ngayon. Tataka kayo na maraming hindi dito, hindi doon, puro hindi na lang. It's because we are fighting a deadly microbe, and it's COVID. And it can kill you pag tinamaan ka. Pasking ako, pag tinamaan ako, pwede ako madisgrasya. Tiis na konti. Total, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, actually, so to say, so to speak, is now, total, nandyan pa tayo ngayon. May 1 year pa kayo next December. Baka next December, ibawal ko na ang putok because it is really a dangerous thing. And for reasons of public safety and health. Public safety, mamatay ka, masakit ka. Health is, ma-hospital ka, maputol yung kamay mo. It's a health problem actually. Yung inhalation ng powder smoke. So it is a problem of health, public interest, and public safety. So I'm putting you on warning na baka by mid-year I will issue the necessary document banning totally banning paputok.
President Duterte claimed that nobody dies or sustains injuries during holiday celebrations in Davao City. In 2017, President Duterte issued Executive Order 28, limiting the use of firecrackers to community fireworks display. And the president, who imposed the ban in Davao City when he was still a mayor, said that the firecrackers who pose risks to people's safety and health since they cause injuries.
In Malaysia, the Malay Mail News Agency said the Health Ministry recorded 2,234 new COVID-19 infections in the last 24 hours. This goes the previous record of 2,188 cases last seen on November 24. 3 more people died from the virus, raising Malaysia's fatality to 396. The spike in the daily new COVID-19 cases in Malaysia is expected to linger until the year-end, largely due to the wide-scale screening of workers, particularly those working in factories and at construction sites, that started on December 1.
And the Cambodian government has taken additional measures to curb the country's latest outbreak of COVID-19, and that includes giving power to provincial and municipal authorities to close shops, not adhering to public health protocols, imposing a mandatory 2-week quarantine for travelers entering the country, and controversial moves such as publishing the names of people infected with the coronavirus. Now, these measures come on the heels of the first cases of a community transmission dubbed the November 28 incident, after Cambodian General Director of Prisons, Chem Savut, his wife, and several family members tested positive for COVID-19. This incident led the government to again close schools in the capital of Phnom Penh and limit gatherings to no more than 20 people. While Cambodia has reported only a small volume of cases compared with its neighboring countries and 0 deaths from COVID-19, large-scale community transmission could put pressure on its health system. Prior to this latest outbreak, the country had a COVID-19 scare in which government officials, including the Prime Minister, went into quarantine after Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó, who visited the country on November 3, tested positive for the coronavirus.
A coronavirus scare that cut short a cruise to nowhere off Singapore was a false alarm, officials said Thursday after a fresh test on a passenger came back negative. The voyages starting and ending at the city-state with no stops began last month, marking a resumption of cruises after a month-long hiatus due to the pandemic. But a liner carrying 1,680 guests and 1,148 crew had to return back to port Wednesday, day 3 of a 4-day cruise after the 83-year-old man tested positive at an onboard clinic. The man was taken to hospital while passengers and crew remained stuck in their cabins for hours until contact tracing was completely and they were allowed to disembark in the evening. But the Health Ministry said that a third and final test on the Quantum of the Seas passenger on Thursday confirmed that he had not been infected. The Singapore Tourism Board said the pilot cruise to nowhere sailings aimed at reviving the hard-hit tourism sector will continue and praised the swift response to the incident.
Now, Indonesia held a nationwide regional election with more than 100 million voters who casted their ballot despite warnings the poll would worsen the nation's COVID-19 crisis. The archipelago of nearly 270 million, the world's third biggest democracy and fourth most populous nation, delayed the vote originally set for September as it struggled to contain soaring infection rates. Take a look.
Kekhawatiran tidak ya, karena kita sebenarnya kalau bisa makanya jangan sampai golput gitu kan, biar kita bisa gunakan gitu. Kita kan vaksinnya juga sesuai yang kita pilih aja. Khawatir sebenarnya ada, cuman dari Bawaslu Kantor Mata sampai juga sudah dijelaskan mengenai kita mengatasi terpapar COVID-19 dengan tindakan pencegahan COVID-19. Antaranya seperti di awal pagi-pagi tadi sebelum dimulai kita sudah melakukan penyemprotan disinfektan. Terus kemudian kan ruang tunggu juga luas ya. Daftar pemilih di TPS 29 yang paling tua itu kelahiran tahun 1932. Nah, untuk yang paling muda di 2002. Nah, untuk yang pemilih yang tua itu yang lansia, jadi memang sebagian ada yang menggunakan pendamping ya. Itu kan pendamping memang diperbolehkan karena dia mengisi form surat.
From the capital Jakarta to the holiday island of Bali, polling station staff in full protective gears enforced social distancing and took voters' temperatures before polls closed at 1 p.m. local time. Official results are not expected for several weeks. At least 4 election candidates have died so far, according to independent research group Lapor COVID, and more than 1,000 election agency staff were infected ahead of the voting day. Over 580,000 Indonesians have contracted the illness, while the death toll stands at 18,000. But the true scale of the crisis is widely believed to be much bigger as testing rates are low. Infections could skyrocket above 1 million after polling day, warned Hermawan Saputra at the Indonesian Public Health Experts Association.
Two of the first people vaccinated in the United Kingdom on Tuesday with the Pfizer Incorporated BioNTech shot had an allergic reaction following the injection, according to the country's medical regulator, prompting it to issue new guidance, warning those with a history of significant allergic reactions against having the inoculation. In an interview with the CNN's Sanjay Gupta from Harvard University's T.H. Chan School of Public Health, Dr. Attorney Fauci said on Wednesday that such a reaction is likely unusual and rare, but warned that those suffering from particular health condition should be very careful when it comes to the vaccine. Let's take a look.
There are people who have what's called allergic diatheses, or a tendency to get allergic reactions. I believe that both of those individuals did, in fact, have that tendency. What we need to do looking forward, and these are the kind of things that happen when you implement large vaccine programs. Remember, we had 30,000 people in the Moderna trial and 44,000 people in the Pfizer trial. Once you start implementing the actual utilization of the vaccine in a clinical setting, you're talking about millions of individuals getting vaccinated. So you may start seeing effects in some that might not have been picked up when you were dealing with thousands. So it likely is an unusual and rare effect, but clearly everyone now is aware of that and will be looking at that, and particularly taking care of people who do have underlying allergic phenomena, that they might be cautious about vaccination, or at least be prepared to respond with some sort of antidote to the allergic reaction. So if I were a person that had an underlying allergic tendency, I might want to be prepared that I might get a reaction and therefore be ready to treat it.
Hello there. Imagine Dami got the virus, and she infected 2 more. And those 2 infected a lot more of people. And it goes on and on until it became an epidemic. But what if Dami stayed at home? Then those 2 wouldn't have contracted the virus. Then those people would have not been infected. This is not just your battle, it's everyone's, and you can be a huge help. Follow social distancing, or better yet, stay at home.
To the Myanmar Rohingya refugee crisis now, and the reported transfer of some 1,600 vulnerable people sheltering in Bangladesh to an island off the coast. In a statement on Thursday, UN-appointed rights expert Tom Andrews expressed concern that the relocation of the Rohingya to Bhasan Char Island had happened without an independent assessment to verify that the island was suitable to safely host new arrivals. The story has its roots in the mass exodus of several 100,000 Rohingya people who fled violent attacks in Myanmar's Rakhine state, linked to a Myanmar military offensive in the summer of 2017. Mr. Andrews said that he was concerned that some of the relocations from Bangladesh camps had been done involuntarily through either coercion or misinformation. He also said that it was reasonable for the Bangladesh government to seek options for refugees who wanted to live elsewhere than the mega camps or Cox's Bazar. The rights expert also maintained that the Rohingya crisis emanated from Myanmar and can only be solved in Myanmar, which had the moral and legal responsibility to end the crisis by allowing the Rohingya to return home.
The United States on Thursday voiced concern over Bangladesh transfer of Rohingya refugees to a low-lying island and said that any movement should be voluntary. Bangladesh, which has taken in nearly 1 million Rohingya who fled a brutal offensive in neighboring Myanmar, has started the relocation of 100,000 of them from squalid camps on the mainland of Bhasan Char, a sealed island frequently in the path of cyclones. The United States reiterated its appreciation to Bangladesh from accepting the refugees, but said it was concerned about last week's transfer of more than 1,600 Rohingya and plans to move more. UN spokesperson Stephanie Dujarric earlier pointed to reports corroborated by accounts on the ground to AFP that refugees have been pressured into relocating. Bangladesh Foreign Minister Abdul Momen called the claims a damn lie and said facilities on the island were much better than the camps. The United States called for Bangladesh to allow thorough and independent technical protection assessments of Bashan Char to determine whether the island said to be prone flooding is suitable for refugees.
In other news in the region, a Malaysian coroner will deliver an inquest verdict by early January over the death of a French-Irish teenager whose body was found in the jungle, according to a lawyer on Thursday, after hearings concluded. The body of Nora Quarian, a 15-year-old with learning difficulties, was discovered unclothed last year after a massive hunt through the rainforest. Authorities insist there was no foul play, but her parents believe she was abducted from the resort where they were staying near Kuala Lumpur, saying the teen would not have wandered off alone. The final witness wrapped up her testimony Thursday, concluding hearings in the inquest, which began in late August. Coroner Maimuna Aid has not finalized a date to deliver the verdict, but it will be on either December 31 or January 4, according to the Corin's family lawyer, Sathwell. The inquest was heard from over 40 witnesses, and police insisted that there was no evidence of criminal involvement in the teen's death and believed that she climbed out of a window of the family chalet at the resort of her own. But her London-based parents testified they heard mysterious noises coming from inside the property before their daughter went missing. And they criticized the police for a slow and ineffective response. An autopsy found the teen whose body was found close to the resort had probably starved and died of internal bleeding, but her family pushed for the inquest.
Thai democracy activists rallied at the UN Bangkok's office Thursday and asked the body to pressure the kingdom into repealing royal defamation laws they say are being used to suppress their movement.
ถ้าอย่างประเทศไทยมันไม่ใช่แค่ของไทยคนเดียวเพราะฉะนั้นกับการที่มีกฎข้อนี้แล้วแกนนำที่ออกมาพูดเรื่องพวกนี้แล้วเขาก็ยังโดนข้อหามันก็เป็นการแสดงแล้วว่ามันมีคนที่พยายามที่จะทำตัวเป็นเจ้าของประเทศแล้วก็กดคนอื่นมาข้างล่าง
มีหลายอย่างที่เขาทำแล้วรู้สึกว่ามันไม่เป็นสากลโลกก็เลยทำให้รู้สึกว่าสงสารพี่ๆแกนนำน้องๆแกนนำทุกคนที่มาที่นี่ค่ะที่วิจารณ์ไม่ได้ทั้งที่เขาก็ไม่ได้พูดให้กษัตริย์เสื่อมเสีย
ผมมองว่าเหมือนเขาก็ปรับตัวให้เข้ากับยุคสมัยครับเหมือนกับว่าให้เห็นว่าเหมือนกับว่าต่อให้เขาเคยจะยิ่งใหญ่อะไรแค่ไหนมาก็ตามเนี่ยแต่ปัจจุบันเนี่ยเขาเท่าเทียมกับประชาชนเพราะว่ายังไงแล้วปัจจุบันเขาก็ใช้เงินประชาชนนะครับเขาก็ควรจะแบบเท่าเทียมกับเรา
23 leaders are facing charges under the legislation for headlining demonstrators demanding the reforms to the monarchy and more scrutiny of the royal family's financial arrangements. The kingdom's lese majesty laws shield the super wealthy King Maha Vajiralongkorn and the royal family from the criticism, with anyone convicted facing between 3 to 15 years in prison. Lese majesty crimes have been on the books for over a century in Thailand, but were last strengthened in 1976. The use of the law slowed since 2018 due to the mercy of the king, according to the Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha. But last month, the premier gave the green light to deploy it again after months of protest. Hundreds of protesters also rallied Thursday at a Bangkok memorial that commemorates the lives of pro-democracy supporters lost during a military massacre in 1973. Overnight, police also installed shipping containers stuck on the top of each other and razor wire blockades to stop protesters from marching towards Government House, a royal palace, and other sensitive sites. Besides calling for reforms to the monarchy, protesters are demanding a rewrite of military scripted constitution and the resignation of Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, who came to power in a 2014 coup.
Since July, rolling youth-led protests calling for democratic reforms have been a boon for Thailand's art movement. And artist Chalermpol Junayab is among a crop of creatives taking inspiration from the nation's political mood. Take a look.
นอกจากสถานที่ท่องเที่ยวแล้วเนี่ยที่ Amazing เนี่ยมันก็น่าจะเป็นเรื่องแบบความเหลื่อมล้ำทางสังคมความคอร์รัปชันในบ้านเราอันนี้ผมก็มองว่ามันเป็น The Amazing Thailand ก็เลยหยิบยกไอ้ท็อปิกตรงนี้ขึ้นมาเป็นโลโก้ของงานชุดการเมืองชุดนี้ผมแค่มองว่าอยากให้คนรู้สึกขบขันไปกับมันหัวเราะไปกับมันไม่ได้มีความรู้สึกอยากจะแบบโอ้โหไปตะบี้ตะบันไปคุกคามอีกฝ่ายหนึ่งผมไม่ได้ต้องการอย่างนั้นผมแค่ต้องการอยากจะลดความรุนแรงของมันลงอ่ะ
This week in Indonesia, the National Search and Rescue Agency said that the death toll from floods in North Sumatra province has climbed to 5. Houses have been damaged and cars swept by the flood water after the torrential rain in the past few days. The Medan Regional Disaster Management Agency said heavy rainfall since Thursday night has caused 4 rivers, the Sungal, Dengi, Delhi, Buraba, and Denai to overflow, submerging nearby houses and streets. An estimated 6,000 people were affected by the floods. More than 2,700 houses were flooded in the city, which has about 2.9 million people, forcing authorities to cut off electricity and water supplies, it said on Friday. Rescuers took 181 people to temporary shelters. Floods and landslides are common in Indonesia during the rainy season. Severe flooding and landslides that hit Greater Jakarta early this year killed more than 60 people, displaced hundreds of thousands, and forced an airport to close.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced, eagle news, because we live in interesting times.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business every Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. Open for Business, from vision to action.
Welcome back. Britain signed a free trade deal with Singapore, giving it a key foothold in Asia as it seeks to forge its own path after leaving the European Union, while talks on a post-Brexit deal stumble. The deal removes tariffs and gives both countries access to each other's markets in services, as well as cutting non-tariff barriers in sectors ranging from electronics to pharmaceutical products, according to Singapore's Trade Ministry. As the deal was signed in the city-state, Britain's International Trade Secretary Liz Truss praised Singapore for its leadership on free trade. Take a look.
Singapore is already the UK's largest trade and investment partner in ASEAN, while the UK is Singapore's top investment destination in Europe. But together, we can go even further. From digital ports to free ports to cybersecurity and fintech, Singapore and the United Kingdom will push the new frontiers in trade and show that innovation and free enterprise remain the best way forward for the world. Together, Singapore and the United Kingdom are tackling the challenges of the present and seizing the opportunities of the future. We've risen to the moment by guaranteeing vital continuity and embracing a future in which we go further and faster to support our great innovators.
The UK-Singapore FTA provides a clear path forward for us to continue strengthening our economic partnership. As the first FTA between the UK and an ASEAN member state, it also represents the UK's deepening engagement of the region and provides British businesses a platform to access opportunities in the region through Singapore.
The agreement largely replicates an existing EU-Singapore pact, with the city-state saying it will cover more than 17 billion pounds or $22 billion in trade. Ms. Truss said the agreement will take Britain a step closer to joining a massive free trade zone, the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, of which Singapore is a member. The pact groups 11 Pacific Rim nations, among them Australia, Canada, Chile, Japan, Mexico, and Vietnam. A previous version of the deal was once championed by the U.S., but President Trump abandoned it. Britain signed its first major post-Brexit trade deal with Japan in October, but Thursday's agreement is its first with a member of ASEAN. The 10-country bloc is home to 650 million people and prior to the pandemic-induced downturn had enjoyed rapid economic growth in recent years. Thursday's signing came after British Prime Minister Boris Johnson and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen gave themselves until Sunday to decide on the future of post-Brexit negotiations following a 3-hour dinner that left the two sides far apart. Britain and the EU are running out of time to reach an agreement on a future trading relationship before a post-Brexit transition period finishes at the end of the year.
Yesterday, the ASEAN Secretariat organized an online focus group discussion with ASEAN business representatives as part of the ASEAN Economic Community Blueprint 2025 midterm review exercise. Over 15 representatives from ASEAN Business Advisory Council, ASEAN Women Entrepreneurs Network, and ASEAN Future Workforce Council attended the discussions, as well as relevant ASEAN Secretariat staff members. The focus group discussion aimed at drawing out business insights and perspectives on the outcomes and impact of the AEC and the AEC Blueprint 2025 implementation, challenges and opportunities on the ground, as well as expectations and recommendations for the next phase of AEC Blueprint 2025 implementation. The highlights of the discussion focus on the AEC Blueprint 2025's implementation, translation of AEC's implementation to changes and benefits on the ground, the need for good regulatory practice, challenges on the non-tariff measures, digitalization's opportunities and challenges, and new production and distribution realities in global value chains. Other issues that were also underlined included imperatives of human capital development, gender mainstreaming, sustainability, and inclusivity, and closer engagements between government and private sectors.
Defense ministers of ASEAN member states and its 8 dialogue partners have adopted a joint declaration at the 7th ASEAN Defense Ministers Meeting Plus, or ADMM Plus, on Thursday. The defense ministers reaffirmed the principles for friendly and mutual beneficial relations as set in the declaration of the East Asia Summit on the principles for mutually beneficial relations. Now, the ministers agreed to continue enhancing strategic dialogue and promote practical cooperation on regional defense and security issues among ASEAN member states and the Plus countries by implementing the ADMM 3-year work programs and the ADMM Plus Experts Working Groups, or EWGS work plans. They also agreed to strengthen defense cooperation to tackle security challenges through the 7 ADMM Plus EWGS while upholding the principles of ASEAN centrality, respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity, consensus-based decision-making, flexible, voluntary, and non-binding contributions, with assets remaining under national command and patrol.
Budget carrier Cebu Pacific President and Chief Executive Officer Lance Gokongwei on Monday said he believes a COVID-19 immunity passport is essential, especially as the country opens up international travel. In a briefing with presidential spokesman Harry Roque, Gokongwei said there are many vaccines and thus there has to be a global COVID passport showing a person has been vaccinated by a credible vaccination source that every country would respect and recognize.
We do think that's essential, no? Especially as we open up international travel. Na daming different vaccines, and I think we have to work on a global COVID passport, no? So that each country respects the passport and recognizes that if you do have this COVID passport, that you have already been vaccinated by a credible vaccination source. No? So I think this has to be led at a G2G basis, but definitely I think it's essential for if the tourism and travel industries to recover. This is an absolute necessity. No?
Gokongwei, also President and Chief Executive Officer of conglomerate GJ Summit Holdings Incorporated, said that the carrier is working with local government units, or LGUs, as it respects each LGU's own guidelines or travel requirements. The CEB recently partnered with the local government of General Santos in providing the antigen test for passengers. CEB has been providing its Jensen-bound passengers a free antigen test since December 3 until December 14.
Every year, pounding rains wash away mountains of plastic waste from the streets of Jakarta, with some of it ending up as far away as Bali's beaches. So scientists are now turning to satellites to trace the rubbish and figure out how to tackle the problem. Indonesia allows more waste to enter the ocean than any other country apart from China. Take a look.
Better understanding where those plastic or beaching or going, it's going to help them a lot on prioritizing their action. For instance, if they have to purchase a dam at the river, they will know which river is a very high priority in terms of environmental impact, in terms of biodiversity impact, and where to put the money first, I would like to say.
The most important from this is we're not just taking the marine debris, we also taking the marine mammals. So we know when the mammals, when the marine debris movement has inbound with the mammal migrations. That's the most important.
Confidence mo, ramdam namin dito. You should be proud of yourself. Binuhos mo lahat.
Natutuwa ako sa ginawa mo. Talagang lahat kami ay na-amaze sa iyong galaw.
The search continues para sa maghaharap-harap sa ating first monthly finals ngayong second quarter ng ating kompetisyon. Who will bring the heat dito sa ating TNG stage ngayong taglamig? Malalaman natin sa Tagisan ng Galing Part 2 Dance Edition.
Welcome back. Amsterdam's famed Rijksmuseum unveiled plans for a landmark show next year about the Netherlands' colonial role in slavery, saying it would tackle questions raised by the Black Lives Matter movement. The slavery exhibition will be the first major event on the sensitive subject of Dutch involvement in human trade across the Atlantic and Indian Oceans under one roof, according to museum officials. And this comes as the Black Lives Matter protests in the U.S. are changing perceptions globally and with the debate at home about the Netherlands' own attitude to race and its colonial history. The colonial past of the Netherlands had an important role in playing the foundation decorations for the present-day Netherlands, according to Rijksmuseum Director Taco Dibbets at the exhibition's launch event, held online due to coronavirus restrictions. During the height of its colonial empire in the 17th century, the Netherlands kept colonies in the Caribbean, including Suriname and Curaçao in South Africa, as well as in the former Dutch East Indies in Asia, the modern-day Indonesia.
Lab-grown chicken will soon be available in restaurants in Singapore after the country became the first to greenlight meat created without slaughtering any animals. Let's take a look. After a long week of cooking and cleaning in households of Hong Kong, a group of Filipino domestic helpers are using their Sunday off for an unlikely hobby, cricket, and they're proving rather good at it. Despite no background in the game, scant coaching, and very little time, the SCC Divas have made a startling impact, winning Hong Kong's Development League twice in their first 2 seasons and going unbeaten since stepping up to the main divisions this year. Along the way, they've inspired the Philippines' first national women's cricket team, providing 7 of its players while shaking up Hong Kong's sleepy cricket scene, a remnant of British colonialism. Let's watch this.
Either you go this way or either you go this way. Depends upon the line. If it's offside.
One over ang sinabi ko, hindi one. Sama-sama! Tayo! Sama-sama! Tayo! Sama-sama! Tayo!
Monday to Saturday, we are working as domestic helper and we only have day off Sunday. And since we start joining the cricket league in Hong Kong, our training only Sunday 2 hours. That's only our time. Yeah. Next time.
Nice, Tikan!
For me, it's very relaxing. It makes my day very worthwhile. So it's good to be active and you forget all the stress and the troubles, everything, and you just focus on what you do that makes you happy.
Good stuff. Well played. Well played.
Esther, do you know how to play cricket?
No.
No, I don't either. I don't understand the game. But thank you for joining me today, though. And you have a great weekend, Esther. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Alma. And that's the latest news around ASEAN. Thank you all for watching. Again, from EBC Thailand Bureau, this is Esther Adanga, and we live in interesting times.
We'll see you back next week. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.